The cruel truth is this: people don't return because they finally recognize your worth. They return because the future they counted on shut its doors in their face. And when it happens, it never arrives with thunder or apology or the kind of clarity you once begged for. It comes quietly, like a shift in the air, like the faint echo of footsteps behind you, familiar enough to stir something in your chest, distant enough to make you wonder if you're imagining it. There's a strange stillness to that moment, a heaviness that settles into the room before a single word is spoken, and every part of you understands, instinctively, that life has begun to loop back in ways it never did when you were young. For years, you walked forward alone, carrying wounds you never admitted, rebuilding yourself from pieces no one else bothered to pick up. And somewhere in that long, quiet battle, you became a man the world wasn't ready to face. But now the world has changed. Now the people who once ran ahead are slowing down, turning around, searching the darkness they left you in, hoping you're still standing there, untouched by the storms they thought they were too special to face. And you can see it in their eyes, in the softness of their voice, in the hesitation behind every carefully chosen word. This isn't recognition, it's reckoning. Stay with me. Because what happens to a man around 40 isn't just justice. It's the beginning of something far deeper, something the world never warned you about, yet everything in your life has quietly prepared you for. You see, life has a way of moving in long, quiet arcs, so slow you barely notice them forming, so subtle you only understand them when you're standing at the edge of a moment that feels both inevitable and impossible. And for a man approaching 40, that arc becomes sharper, clearer, almost painfully honest. It's the point in time when the light of who you used to be finally fades, and the outline of who you've become starts to take shape in the dark. There was a time when you moved through the world trying to prove something, trying to be seen, understood, chosen. You poured years into becoming enough for people who barely paused long enough to hear your heartbeat. You tried to earn a place in futures that were never meant for you, futures built on illusions, fantasies, and promises that wouldn't survive a single season of real life. And yet, even when the world turned its back, you kept going. You learned to carry disappointment quietly. You learned to swallow rejection without bitterness. You learned to show up for people who would never show up for you. Life carved depth into you in ways no one else noticed, until now. Because somewhere along the way, without ceremony or applause, you crossed a line. The line between searching for validation and becoming a man who no longer needs it. You stopped begging life to be gentle. You stopped waiting for someone to save you. You stopped asking for doors to open and started building your own. And while you were doing that, while you were growing in silence, something else was happening out there in the world. The people who once overlooked you were making choices, chasing thrills, pursuing dreams built on sand. They believed time was their ally, believed their options were infinite, believed the world would continue bending around their desires. But time is patient and merciless. It grants people illusions long enough for them to build their identity around them, then shatters everything at the exact moment they think they're safe. Now, years later, the arc of their choices has finally curved back, intersecting with the arc of your growth, and they're seeing you clearly for the first time, but from a place of fear, not admiration. They sense you're standing somewhere they can no longer reach. They sense you've built something they never thought you'd hold. They sense that life, in its quiet fairness, has begun to shift its weight towards you. And you feel that shift too. Maybe not fully, maybe not confidently, but enough to know the ground beneath your feet has changed. Enough to recognize that the balance of the past is not the balance of the present. Enough to realize that you are no longer the man the world once dismissed. You are the man it now returns to. But this return, it doesn't come without conflict. Because before a man rises, life always tests the very foundation of who he has become. But before any man rises, life always drags him through one last descent, one final shaping, one final fracture, One final test that doesn't reveal who he is, but who he has stopped being. It never arrives at the moment you expect. It doesn't come during triumph, nor during sorrow, but in a strange, quiet in-between, when you've finally learned how to walk without waiting for anyone to turn around. That's when the past returns, softly, unexpectedly, wearing a face you once knew better than your own reflection. It begins subtly, almost imperceptibly, like a shift in temperature you feel before you notice. A message appears, simple, harmless on the surface, but vibrating with the old energy you spent years trying to outgrow. A familiar voice slips back into your life with a gentleness you never received when you were breaking. A name you buried resurfaces with the careful hesitation of someone who isn't sure if they're welcome, and inside that hesitation, you recognize a truth they will never admit. This isn't nostalgia, it's need. And suddenly, the ground beneath you tilts, not because you want them back, but because their return forces you to stand face to face with a version of yourself you thought you had left behind. The version who waited, the version who chased, the version who believed that being chosen by them would solve the ache you carried. But as their presence settles into the air, you feel something you didn't expect. Distance. A distance carved not by time, but by everything you survived while they were gone. You see it in their eyes now, the uncertainty, the fragility, the quiet panic. You hear it in the softness of their voice, a softness sharpened by fear rather than tenderness. You feel it in the weight of each question they ask, each glance they hold too long, each apology wrapped in vague explanations. They aren't reaching for you because they finally see your worth. They're reaching because the paths they once worshipped have abandoned them. Their confidence has unraveled. Their future has shrunk. Their illusions have collapsed. And in the ruins of those choices, you have become the only light they remember. And yet, it doesn't feel like victory. It doesn't even feel like justice. It feels like a confrontation with your own history. Raw, unresolved, unavoidable. Because as you look at them now, standing in the doorway of your present, you can feel the echo of who you used to be clawing at your memory. The loneliness, the confusion, the nights you spent questioning what was wrong with you, the years it took to rebuild the parts of yourself, their absence shattered, and the cruel symmetry of life hits you. They are returning at the exact moment you no longer need them, and that truth cuts deeper than their rejection ever did. You're caught between two selves, the one who once would have run toward them, and the one who stands still now, unshaken, unmoved, uncertain whether their return is a gift or a warning. And in that tension, that quiet, suffocating tension, you feel the real conflict begin. Not between you and them, between you and the man you once were. Because this moment forces a question no man escapes. Will you repeat the past that broke you? Or finally step into the future you built without them? You see, the return of someone who once hurt you isn't a second chance. It's the final test life gives before it allows you to rise. And this is where the weight truly settles. The moment everything becomes too quiet, too honest, too close to the part of you you've spent years hiding from. Because when the past returns, it doesn't just bring a familiar face, it brings every unanswered question, every wound you shoved into the dark, every version of yourself that never learned how to speak without trembling. And as you stand there, staring at someone who once broke you without ever noticing, you feel a hollow sound forming in your chest. The sound of years you will never get back. It's strange how the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. You feel the old loneliness rising like a tide, the old fear whispering that maybe you were never enough, the old ache reminding you that healing doesn't erase history. It only teaches you how to live with it. And in that quiet collapse, you realize something most men never admit aloud. You are tired. Not just physically, not just emotionally, but tired in a way only a man who has carried himself alone for too long can understand. Tired of pretending you're unaffected. Tired of swallowing disappointment until it burns. Tired of rebuilding yourself in silence every time life takes something from you. tired of being the stronger one simply because no one else will step up. And as that exhaustion washes over you, you finally allow yourself to feel the truth you've avoided for years. You don't want to fall again. You don't want to be used again. You don't want to lose yourself for someone who only returns when their world collapses. This is the moment, the real moment, when the story shifts. Not when they come back, but when you finally admit to yourself how much it cost you to survive them. And if you're still here, listening, breathing through this heaviness with me, I want you to hear something with absolute clarity. You are not the only man who has ever stood in this quiet, breaking place. You are not alone in this confusion, this fear, this strange mixture of strength and vulnerability that hits hardest around 40. Every man who has carried the weight of his own silence has walked through this darkness too, step by step, breath by breath, hoping someone, anyone, could understand what it feels like to be strong for too long. So let me ask you, with the kind of honesty the world rarely offers men like you, if this moment is hitting something deep inside you, if these words feel uncomfortably close, if you recognize yourself in the shadows I'm describing, then stay with me. Don't step back into silence. Don't disappear the way life conditioned you to. Subscribe. Not for me, for you. For every moment you stood alone and pushed forward anyway. For every version of yourself that never got to be heard. For the man you are now. The man who finally deserves a voice, a community, a place where his pain is not dismissed, but understood. Because what comes next in your story should not be walked alone. Not this time. And once you decide not to walk this next chapter alone, something shifts. Quietly at first, then with a force you haven't felt in years. It begins like a breath you didn't know you were holding, finally leaving your chest, like your spine straightening under a weight that no longer belongs to you. For the first time in a long time, you aren't looking backward. You aren't replaying the moments that broke you. You aren't waiting for someone to validate the parts of you the world ignored. Instead, you feel something else rising, slow, steady, undeniable. A kind of internal gravity drawing you forward, pulling together every scar, every lesson, every quiet victory you survived alone. You realize the past didn't return to reclaim you. It returned to confirm you had outgrown it. And that recognition becomes fuel. You start waking differently. Not lighter, not happier, but sharper. Present, anchored in a quiet force you can feel beneath your ribs. The world hasn't changed, but your position in it has. You begin moving with intention, speaking with clarity, choosing with a kind of precision that comes only from a man who has learned, painfully, what it costs to ignore his own worth. You focus on building, not proving. You focus on growing, not chasing. You focus on becoming the man your pain pushed you toward, not the man the past wanted to keep you as. Every step you take now feels like a reclamation of time, of identity, of strength. You pick up the habits you once abandoned. You return to the dreams you shelved out of fear. You sharpen your mind, your discipline, your boundaries. Not loudly, not to be seen, but because the journey itself has become more important than who watches. And somewhere along this ascent, you notice something almost poetic. The more you rise, the smaller the past becomes. The faces that once haunted you fade into silhouettes. The voices that once controlled you lose their weight. The wounds that once defined you turn into reminders of how far you've climbed. This is your revenge, not bitterness, not retaliation, but elevation. Rising so steadily, so fully, so undeniably, that the world that once ignored you now finds itself struggling to catch up. And the people who return? They feel it too. They can sense the distance, the strength, the self-respect you forged in silence. They look at you and realize, perhaps for the first time, that you have stepped beyond the reach of their influence. But the beauty of this moment is that you are not rising to spite them. You are rising because you finally, fully, understand the truth life has been trying to show you for years. A man's power doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing himself relentlessly every single day. And as that truth settles into your bones, the path ahead grows clear. The noise of the past falls away. The world no longer feels like something pressing against you. It feels like something opening around you. You are no longer climbing out of the darkness. You are climbing with it, using every scar as a foothold, every lesson as a handhold, every loss as leverage. You rise not in spite of the shadows, but because of them. And now, as the momentum builds and the air thins in the best possible way, you are finally approaching the part of the story every man deserves to reach. The moment the world stops testing you and starts recognizing you. And then, almost without noticing, you reach a height you once believed belonged only to other men. Men luckier, stronger, chosen by life in ways you never were. But as you stand there now, breathing in air that feels cleaner than anything you've tasted in years, you realize something unbelievable in its simplicity. You didn't rise because the world finally opened its doors to you. You rose because you stopped waiting at doors that were never built for you in the first place. There's a calmness here, a clarity you don't need to force. It settles over you like the first warm light after a long winter, touching the parts of your spirit you thought had gone numb. And for the first time, you look back, not with longing, not with grief, but with an understanding so deep it quiets the ghosts that once haunted every choice you made. You see the younger version of yourself, the one who carried the weight of being underestimated, the one who loved harder than he should have, the one who mistook rejection for destiny. And instead of judging him, you finally forgive him. You understand why he fell. You understand why he held on. You understand why he broke the way he did. But most importantly, you understand why he had to survive his darkness for you to stand here now. Because this place, this altitude, this clarity, this quiet power, you could never have reached it without the wounds that shaped your spine, without the silence that carved your strength, without the losses that forced you to build a foundation out of your own bones. And in that understanding, something inside you softens. The bitterness loosens. The questions fade. The need for closure dissolves like smoke in the morning sun. You no longer need validation. You no longer crave the past. You no longer carry the fear that once controlled your pulse, because the man you've become is no longer defined by who walked away, but by how far you kept walking after they did. And here is the part the world rarely tells men, but you deserve to hear with absolute clarity. Your life is not running out. Your value is not fading. Your story is not behind you. At 40, you're not late. You're finally on time. Because you now possess what younger men cannot fake: gravity, discernment, endurance, depth, a steadiness carved from storms survived rather than storms avoided. And as you stand in this new light, a light you built, a light no one can take, you feel the world shifting around you, not because you chased it, but because you outlasted everything that wasn't meant for you. This is your rise. This is your clarity. This is the moment life bows its head, not in apology, but in recognition. And as that recognition settles into your chest with the weight of truth, you finally understand why the past returned, why the world circled back, why everything that broke you suddenly makes perfect sense. You were never the man they left behind. You were the man time was shaping for exactly this moment. And as the final pieces of this truth settle inside you, the world around you doesn't suddenly shine, but it does become clearer, quieter, easier to stand in. You can feel it now, the shift in your own gravity, the way your spirit no longer trembles under the weight it once carried. What once felt like loss now feels like shaping. What once felt like emptiness now feels like space. And the man who once questioned his worth now stands in the quiet certainty of who he has become. You don't need the past to return. You don't need anyone to rewrite what already healed. because the man standing here is no longer made of the fractures that once defined him. He is made of everything he rebuilt from those fractures. So breathe. Let this moment rest in you. Let the stillness feel less like silence and more like arrival. You've earned this steadiness. You've earned this clarity. You've earned the right to step into your future without dragging the ghosts of your past behind you. And if these words touched the place you've kept hidden, if they felt like someone finally understood the weight you've carried alone, then don't disappear back into the quiet that nearly buried you. Stay. Walk with me a little longer. Subscribe, not for the sake of a channel, but as a small promise to yourself that your rise from here forward will not be done in silence. Thank you for being here. Truly. The world may have missed who you were, but it will not miss the man you've become now.